there is a particular kind of person the world almost never worries about. They are the ones who hold everything, the ones who answer the phone at 3 a.m. and never make the call themselves. The ones who, when asked how they are, say fine, and mean it as a door quietly closing. From the outside, they look like strength, composed, capable, the person everyone leans on, the one who never seems to break. And somewhere underneath that competence, in a room they rarely visit, there is a much older feeling, a quiet, wordless ache, the longing to be held by something they did not have to build themselves. Because self-sufficiency is not always freedom. Sometimes it is a wound that learned to wear a suit. If you are the strong one, the one who carries, who manages, who needs no one, this is not a lecture about opening up. You have heard that 1,000 times, and it has never once reached the place it was aimed at. This is something slower. A walk back through the architecture of why you became this way, and what on the far side of it is quietly waiting to be reclaimed. Not the story of a flaw, the story of a survival that outlived the danger it was built for. No child is born self-sufficient. A child is born as pure need, helpless, porous, reaching. The infant does not soothe itself. It cannot. It cries into the dark and waits to see whether the dark answers. And in that answering or its absence, something is written that words will spend a lifetime trying to reach. For some, the answer was reliable enough. They learned in their bones that need was safe, that reaching outward brought warmth back. But for others, and perhaps for you, the equation came back different. Maybe the adults who were meant to hold you were themselves drowning. Maybe love arrived, but only when you were useful, only when you were easy, only when you asked for nothing. Maybe your tears were met with irritation, or silence, or a tired face that made you feel like a weight added to a back already breaking. Maybe no single thing happened at all, only a slow daily lesson, absorbed the way a room absorbs cold. Your needs are a problem here. A child cannot leave. A child cannot change the adults. A child has exactly one move to change themselves. And so a small brilliant survival strategy is born. If needing brings pain, then I will stop needing. If my hunger is a burden, I will become someone who is never hungry. I will meet my own needs before anyone can refuse them. I will become so competent, so contained, so unbothersome that no one will ever have a reason to leave. Understand what actually happened here. This was not weakness. This was genius. A 4-year-old with no power and no exit engineered a way to stay safe inside an unsafe world. The self-reliance you are sometimes proud of and sometimes exhausted by is the fossil of that genius. It kept you alive. But a strategy built by a child is still running the life of the adult. And it does not know the emergency has ended. It only knows the one commandment it was forged to obey. Do not need anyone, and you will not be hurt again. Carl Jung gave a name to the face we build for the world. He called it the persona, from the Latin for the mask an actor wore on stage. The persona is not a lie exactly, it is the negotiated self, the part of us shaped to meet the world's demands. Everyone has one, we could not function without it. But there is a danger Jung named precisely, the danger of identifying with the mask, of forgetting it is a mask at all, of becoming so fused with the role of the strong one, the capable one, the one who needs nothing, that we lose the thread back to the living face beneath. And here is the law of the psyche that almost no one is taught. Whatever we refuse to be does not disappear. It goes underground. Jung called that underground country the shadow, the sum of everything we exiled in order to be acceptable. So ask the quiet question, if your persona is the one who never needs, where did the need go? It did not die. It cannot die. It went into the shadow, and there it waits. It leaks out sideways in ways the conscious mind refuses to recognize as need. The sudden, disproportionate grief at a small kindness, the tears that ambush you in a parked car for no reason you can name, the resentment you feel toward people who ask for help easily because some part of you is furious that they were allowed to and you were not. That resentment is not arrogance, it is grief wearing armor. Alan Watts spoke of the great illusion at the center of Western life. The belief that we are, in his phrase, a separate ego locked inside a bag of skin. A single self, cut off, defending its borders against a hostile world. And the hyper-independent soul is that illusion carried to its purest, loneliest conclusion. I am an island, I supply myself, I owe nothing, and I am owed nothing. It sounds like sovereignty. It is closer to solitary confinement, with the door painted to look like freedom. Because the truth Watts pointed at is that no such separate self was ever real. You did not make your own body. You did not make the language you think in, the food that becomes your blood, the love that first taught your nervous system how to calm. You are not a fortress. You are a wave, and a wave that insists it is not part of the ocean has not become strong. It has only become afraid. Ram Dass said the ego is like a lawyer whose only client is you and whose only argument is separateness. It builds an entire case for why you must never depend, never soften, never hand the weight to another. And it is a very good lawyer. It has been practicing since you were small. Viktor Frankl found in the worst darkness a human being can be handed that meaning is not something we generate alone in a sealed room. It is found in relationship to another person, to a task, to something beyond the self, which means the very thing your armor forbids, the reaching, the depending, the being affected by another, is not the threat to your life. It is the doorway to its meaning. The persona says, I protect you. The shadow says, you buried me alive. And individuation, the long work of becoming whole, begins the moment you are willing to hear them both. Here is the sentence that will not feel good to hear. Your independence is not only protecting you from being hurt, it is protecting you from being known. And those are not the same freedom. To be unhurt and unknown is not safety. It is a slow, comfortable starvation, the kind you can live inside for decades and call a personality. This is why the advice never works. Just let people in. Be more vulnerable. Lean on someone. You have heard it. You may have even nodded. And nothing changed because that advice speaks to the intellect, and the wall was not built by the intellect. It was built by a terrified child in the body before you had language. You cannot dismantle a pre-verbal survival structure with a verbal suggestion. It is like trying to talk someone out of a reflex. The knowing lives in a deeper country than the words can reach. So notice the mechanics of the prison because they are subtle. Control disguises itself as responsibility. You are the one who plans, who fixes, who holds the whole map, and it feels like care, like competence, like love. But underneath control is often just fear that has learned good manners. If I hold everything, nothing can drop me. If I need no one can fail me. Self-reliance disguises itself as maturity. But there is a version of it that is simply the refusal to ever be in someone's debt. Because debt means dependence, and dependence to the child inside you still means danger. And exhaustion. The exhaustion is constant, and it is invisible, because you have never let anyone see the size of what you carry. You have trained everyone around you to believe you are fine. And then some lonely part of you aches that no one ever offers to help. They do not offer, because you built, with great skill, a person who looks like they would never need it. The isolation is not happening to you. It is being manufactured, quietly, every day, by the very strategy that swore it would keep you safe. This is the cruelty at the heart of the wound. The defense that was supposed to protect the connection is the thing now preventing it. The armor that kept the enemy out has become the wall that keeps everyone out, including the ones who came to love you and could not find the door. And the part almost no one says aloud, some corner of you is proud of this. The self-sufficiency has become an identity, and in identities do not go quietly. To need would feel like losing yourself, like proving the old fear right, like handing your throat to the world and asking it, please, to be gentle this time. Of course you resist. The resistance is not stubbornness. It is the scar tissue of everything that taught you reaching was dangerous. For most people who live this way, the change does not come as a decision. It comes as a collapse. The mystics called it the dark night of the soul. Jung would have recognized it as the necessary death that precedes any real becoming. It arrives when the structure can no longer hold, when the burnout finally has no more reserves to burn, when a loss lands that competence cannot manage, when you are lying awake at an hour that has no name and the old strategy simply stops working. The self-sufficiency fails, and the failure feels like the end of you. But listen closely, because this is the hinge on which the whole thing turns. What is dying is not you. What is dying is the strategy, the mask that got mistaken for a face, the fortress that got mistaken for a home. It will not feel like liberation while it happens. It will feel like drowning. The ego does not distinguish between the death of its defenses and the death of the self. To the lawyer inside you, losing the case is the end of the world. And so the dissolution is terrifying precisely because it is real. Something genuinely ends here. The person who could hold it all alone, they do not survive this. They were never meant to. And in the wreckage, something you have not felt since before you can remember begins to stir. Need. Naked, unarmored, unbearable need. The very thing you exiled 30 years ago walks back into the room. And for the first time, you are too tired to send it away. That moment when you finally let someone see the weight. When the words "I can't do this alone" leave your mouth and the sky does not fall. That is not weakness arriving. That is the exiled child. Finally, being allowed back inside the house. That is the shadow and the persona, standing in the same room at last. The wound does not close by being defended. It closes by being witnessed. There is an old truth that the wounded rarely believe until the wound itself teaches it. Wholeness was never the absence of need. It was the end of the war against it. You were never meant to be a sealed vessel, supplying your own warmth in the dark. You were meant to be porous, to be reached and to reach, to let another person's steadiness become for a moment your own. This is not the failure of independence. It is the thing independence was so afraid of that it built a life to avoid it. The mystic and the psychologist meet in the same quiet place at the end. Both of them stop trying to conquer the self and begin instead to belong to something larger than it. The wave stops defending its edges and remembers the ocean it never actually left. So if you are the strong one, set it down. Not all at once, not as another task to master alone. Only this: the next time the ache moves in that old, unvisited room, do not reach for the armor by reflex. Stay. Let it be there. Let it be need, and let it be yours. The child who learned to carry everything did a holy thing to keep you alive, and that child does not have to carry it anymore. You can put it down now. There are hands here. There always were.